What is David Chipman hiding? Well, that's a question a lot of us have been asking since his nomination by Joe Biden to be potentially the director of the ATF. Well, a report has come out filled with a lot of the answers to those questions and more. Sit by and watch this episode of Guns and Gadgets if you want to stay in the know. Hey everybody, welcome back to Guns and Gadgets, the premier source for Second Amendment news. Before I jump into this report, I'm trying something new with the audio. Let me know if this is better, especially if you watch a lot of my videos. Let me know if this is better with the new lighting. It's been causing a lot of reverberations. So let me know what you think. I'm trying to make it better all around. Thank you for your time. If you're into Second Amendment news, please consider subscribing to this channel. This is where you're going to get it daily. Let's jump into this. So there's been a report that has been released by the American Accountability Foundation, and it's about David Chipman. Now, first off, what is the American Accountability Foundation? Well, it's a nonprofit group that investigates government spending policy and personnel decisions, and they have been all over this David Chipman issue, and the report that was just released and sent to the Senate is very eye-opening, and there's enough questions again to say that this cat is not qualified to be the leader of a group with such perceived power. So I'm going to rip through this report real quick and point out some of the highlights, and hopefully this will answer some of your questions. So here we go. I'll start with the opening page here, and you can see it's to the United States Senate, and they sent it on July 1st of 2021, and it's related to the nomination of David Chipman for director of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, although I really don't see them do much work on alcohol and tobacco or explosives anymore. They're simply an anti-gun group. So it says, outlined below are a series of research findings that present several serious concerns that are potentially disqualifying regarding David Chipman, the president's nominee to lead the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. As the report below outlines, Mr. Chipman has a record of toxic, problematic, and discriminatory behavior at the ATF. These include credible allegations that Chipman told an African-American agent at the Bureau that black agents could not have passed an examination without cheating. There are also serious concerns about the possibility that Chipman lost or had his service weapons stolen while stationed at Washington, D.C. There are also concerns that Chipman attempted to secure an impermissible relocation benefit when he was transferred out of headquarters. Chipman has also made a series of radical, inaccurate, and inflammatory comments that raise serious questions about his judgment and fitness to lead. Chipman has lied about firearm use at the Waco siege to push his gun control agenda, supported defunding the police and ending the war on drugs, supported arresting individuals before they have committed crimes, and supported radical left-wing groups and causes. And these are only the things that we're aware of. Mr. Chipman has been aggressive in deleting or obscuring his social media history by deleting posts and blocking access. This leads one to ask, if Mr. Chipman is afraid of talking about his past, does it say something about his past? Finally, Chipman has an ideological furor that is coupled with an inadequate understanding of firearms regulation, a troubling issue for someone who would head an agency with broad regulatory authority. Despite the assault weapon ban being the most high-profile issue regarding guns on Capitol Hill, supposed firearms expert David Chipman could not give a clear answer to what an assault weapon is. Chipman has also regularly distorted technical issues related to firearms to promote a radical gun agenda. We hope this information is helpful. If you have questions regarding this content, please do not hesitate to email us, and there's the email address. So I'm going to start here with some problematic professional behavior issues. And it starts out with a quote from the chairman of the committee during the nomination process. And the senator said, David Chipman has extensive experience working with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. He will be ready on day one to carry out a mission that every senator should support, taking common sense constitutional steps to make our community safer. And then it jumps into some EEO complaints. And for those who don't know what that stands for, those are equal opportunity complaints. It says the White House and Mr. Chipman have been less than forthcoming in disclosing records related to disciplinary actions associated with Chipman, so much so that the agency is currently being sued for failing to comply with the Freedom of Information Act. Despite the failure to produce these documents, the questions for the record from the Senate Judiciary Committee show that Chipman has been the subject of at least 2 EEO complaints during his tenure. And you can see the response that Chipman gave the senators here when they were asked, was question 16, while you were at ATF, were you ever the subject of EEOC complaints? If so, please explain. And he said, during my 15 years as a manager at ATF, I received 2 EEO complaints. Both complaints were resolved without any finding of discrimination, and no disciplinary action was taken against me. Now, when somebody has a complaint that was resolved without any finding of discrimination and no disciplinary action was taken, that's often a dodge, according to this report. An EEO complaint being resolved without a finding of discrimination is similar to cases that often settle without a finding of liability and often a non-disclosure agreement. Senators have highlighted the problem these non-disclosure agreements create. Often victims of public sector workplace sexual harassment choose to settle out of court. When they do, they are frequently forced to sign non-disclosure agreements, which prevent an employer from disclosing the victim's personal information, but also prohibit victims from speaking out. The victims lose their voices, and the harassers receive anonymity. Just because a complaint was resolved without finding of discrimination does not mean that Mr. Chipman did not behave in a manner that would disqualify him from serving as the director of the ATF. Unfortunately, Chipman refuses to provide the further detail Senator Cruz asked for in his questions for the record. While it is not yet clear what the subject matter of the EEO complaints were, Mr. Chipman has refused to turn over any details of the claims and continues to stonewall senators and the American people. Next, he still refuses to release his personnel records to the Senate. Mr. Chipman's personnel record and disciplinary history could shed important light on his service as a federal employee. Unfortunately, Chipman is stonewalling the committee and refuses to share his important information with the committee. Question 18 on his questions from the senators. Are you willing to make your full personnel file from your time at ATF available to the committee? Chipman's response. My ATF personnel file is under the control of the federal government. As a nominee and private citizen, I have submitted more than 2,000 pages of responsive public and private records to the committee. If I am confirmed, I will continue to be responsive and transparent with the committee to the best of my ability, consistent with department policies and practices. He's dodging it. He's not turning it over, and he still refuses to do so. And you have to ask yourself why. There has to be a reason he's refusing to hand over his personnel record. Next is credible claims of him losing his firearm. In early June, Fox News and The Federalist reported that claims from Chipman's colleagues that he had his service weapon stolen were being investigated by the Senate. 4 GOP senators, Tom Cotton of Arkansas, Ted Cruz of Texas, Mike Lee of Utah, and the Judiciary Ranking Member Chuck Grassley of Iowa all had the same question for the retired ATF agent. Did he ever misplace or have his firearm stolen? Chipman wrote back to each senator with a definite no, according to the testimony obtained by Fox News. But a Senate staffer said the office has received information suggesting that Chipman's answer may not be true, and they are still looking into the matter. A separate source familiar with the allegations told Fox News that Senate staff continued their inquiries about Chipman's mishandling of service weapons, and the Federalist further reported the concerns. We were told multiple times by his former colleagues that he had lost his service weapon. We shared this information with the Senate, who has taken up the matter. Often, a federal employee's personnel file is made available to the Senate and would clear this and other disciplinary matters up. This week, Chipman refused the senator's request to provide his personnel file, which raises questions in this matter, and what else is he hiding? Next are the racially discriminatory comments made against African American agents. Shortly after Chipman's hearing, there was reporting that during Chipman's time as a field agent in Detroit, that he made deeply problematic comments questioning the abilities of African American agents to succeed on their own merits. Jones told the Daily Caller News Foundation that he spoke with a former ATF agent who personally witnessed Chipman making a derogatory comment after reviewing results for candidates who had passed an assessment to become an assistant special agent in charge. Jones said that the former ATF agent recalled Chipman saying, quote, "Wow, there were an unusually large number of African American agents that passed the exam this time. They must have been cheating," end quote. According to Jones, the former ATF agent was incensed upon hearing Chipman's comment and reported the incident to the EEOC. Chipman was the assistant special agent in charge of the Detroit Field Division at the time he allegedly made the derogatory comment. Another ATF agent who worked in the Detroit office at the time told Daily Caller News Foundation that Chipman's alleged comments about African Americans, quote, spread like wildfire at the agency, end quote. The former Detroit-based ATF agent who wished to remain anonymous out of fear of retaliation did not personally witness Chipman making the comment, but recalled colleagues talking about how Chipman, quote, made this remark that all African Americans must be cheating because there's no way they could get these scores, end quote. Quote, he made this remark in front of a bunch of witnesses, end quote. These comments would seem to be something that ATF could easily have verified since they knew who worked closely with Chipman when he was in Detroit, yet they refused to deny the veracity of the comments, instead stating, quote, the ATF declined to comment to the DCNF. Next is the attempt to take an impermissible $44,000 relocation benefit from ATF. Documents drafted by Chipman show that when he was getting divorced and relocating from Washington, D.C. to Detroit, Chipman attempted to extract an impermissible $44,000 benefit from ATF that he was not entitled to. The language below is from a filing Chipman entered in his court case where he details how his then estranged wife thwarted his efforts to get the benefit. The American Accountability Foundation has contacted Ms. Mickey Chipman, David Chipman's ex-wife, who is cordial with David, and her attorney, Heather Cooper, asking both of them to release a copy of the full letter mentioned above. Ms. Chipman has refused to release the letter that her counsel sent to ATF. Next are the radical statements outside the mainstream. Before his nomination, David Chipman spoke very freely on social media, outlining his views on a number of controversial issues. Unfortunately, Chipman has locked down his Twitter account, frustrating a full examination of the radical comments he has made. Despite the lockdown on his Twitter account, there are some archived comments still available. Additionally, AAF has received reports from whistleblowers that Chipman scrubbed radical comments he made on Facebook before his nomination was announced. An anonymous whistleblower who contacted AAF stated that, I struggled for some time whether or not to provide you any information because I have known Dave for more than 25 years. We work together at ATF and we're friends, but ultimately I have decided that some of the things he has said need to be probed in his confirmation hearing because he is not the Dave Chipman, professional law enforcement officer that I have known for decades, but instead he has become consumed by social justice wokeness, and views he expressed on Facebook became so radical that I am gravely concerned about his ability to serve the nation in a role as important as ATF director. I can tell you that back in January and February of 2021, he began a concerted effort to scrub and delete posts which would paint him as an extreme. I do not know if the technology exists to locate these deleted posts, perhaps with the Internet Wayback Machine at archive.org, or similar technology, but I am providing the substance of these posts in the hope that he can be questioned about them. Most of the really extreme Facebook posts were made June through August of 2020, specifically tied to the often violent street protests, destruction of monuments, and vandalism of federal government property. All have been deleted, and I did not screenshot them to save them. I and other retirees from ATF got into a back and forth with Dave about the use of fire and explosives to damage and destroy statues and structures associated with the Civil War, or of former leaders whom he felt were associated with slavery in some direct or indirect way. Dave stated the ends justified the means, and that it was okay to destroy federal government property because of the negative psychological impact on what he regularly referred to as BIPOC people. When he said this was a violation of federal laws enforced by ATF and FBI, which he himself used to enforce, he defended the action, saying the times required destruction and alternatives such as moving statues to a museum, placing contextual plaques, etc. were not enough. Now, if the ends justified the means, what makes you think this guy wouldn't be for firearms confiscation? Next, when I made a post which others responded to, pushing back on his condoning of breaking federal law in the name of social justice, and asked what he would do about Mount Rushmore or Stone Mountain, he said that if it were up to him, he would use fighter jets to bomb them into rubble. This caused me great concern, and I and others said so. All posts have been scrubbed. In discussions about groups like BLM, violence directed towards the police, and the Blue Line flags symbolizing support for law enforcement, he expressed an ends justify the means attitude. He specifically said it was not enough to not be racist, but that if you were not aggressively doing anti-racism work every day and pushing back against anything which supported institutional racism, then you were in fact a racist. I told him that was outrageous and offensive, sounded like it was from a critical race theory briefing, or Robin DiAngelo's book, White Fragility. Dave used to have a very pro-law and order view and never expressed such extreme views while at ATF, but that changed several years after he retired. When he worked for Mayors Against Illegal Guns, and later a personal employee of Mike Bloomberg, he was not nearly so radical, and neither was he off the rails at ShotSpotter, which is a tool that helps law enforcement. Really, the change came after he joined Giffords. His wife Tara, who works in the office of the director, has ties to Arizona and helped facilitate this. In meetings I had with him in the last few years, pre-COVID, he even bragged about how many death threats he has gotten, how people have threatened to rape his wife, kill his kids, etc. And he said that was a badge of honor, that he was, quote, getting to people, end quote, and pissing them off. This really alarmed me. Dave is extremely bright and thinks outside the box. But after he got divorced and then joined AA, he became very self-righteous and almost evangelical in the views that he holds. No more competing ideas and middle ground, and more like once he gets in his head that something is right, he pursues it with a passion and fury. He should have made Special Agent in charge, but he rubbed so many people the wrong way that they basically parked him as the IACP liaison and then made him a division chief in Liaison Division, which at the time had 5 employees. He got the message he was going nowhere and retired in 2012. Given his recent strong views on gun control and almost hostility to people who view guns in a way he doesn't, I am very concerned he would politicize and seriously damage ATF. And that politicization would be a stigma from which ATF could never recover. While people are praising him on his Facebook page, you will note only one person, his close friend, retired ATF agent and Johns Hopkins schoolmate Mark Jones from ATF is doing so. No ATF people are praising him because of his views. Negative posts about Dave on the ATF Facebook page, and there are a great many, are quickly removed, which has angered people, accusing the moderators of censorship. And this includes resurfacing info about past sexual harassment and sexual misconduct with a female employee when he was ASAC in Detroit, and that's Assistant Special Agent in Charge. I have no idea if this is useful or not, but hope these appropriate questions will be asked. Dave should not be our director, something it pains me to say, as we've never had a confirmed director or appointed before the job became a Senate confirmed one, who is an ATF agent, but the damage Dave will cause has forced me to speak out. I have a job to protect and must unfortunately remain anonymous. I am going out on a limb even by giving you the information I have and hope you will further sanitize it. That is pretty damning from somebody who worked with him and is still in the agency. Next are radical comments on Twitter. He lied to Congress about rationale behind hiding and deleting his tweets. Chipman made his Twitter account private in April of 2021. Chipman explained this in a question for the record to Senator Cotton. Question 21, did you discuss with anyone in the Biden administration or transition team anything related to setting your Twitter account to private or deleting or removing particular public posts? Chipman's response, yes, I decided to set my Twitter account to private because of violent threats I had received in the past and anticipated receiving once my nomination was made public. I notified officials at the Department of Justice that I intended to make my account private. A, if so, did anyone in the Biden administration or transition team suggest that you set your Twitter account to private or delete or remove particular public posts? His response was no. They go on to document some proof that as of June 30th, 2021, his Twitter shows that he has 115 tweets, but from October 27, 2016, over 4 years ago, shows that he's tweeted 1,815 times, and that's assuming he didn't tweet from October 27th, 2016 to June 30th, 2021. So that means that Chipman would have purged at least 1,700 tweets, and he likely purged many, many more. Last summer, Chipman tweeted his support for defunding the police. Chipman said, as we debate how best to defund police, we must end the drug war, eliminate policing for profit, and stop further militarization of both the public and police. If done well, what will remain are guardians ready to shield all lives from serious crimes of violence and hate. Now, what do you think the militarization of the public is? That's the militia. He wants to get rid of the militia, which is required by the Constitution. The report says his comments on ending the drug war are peculiar for someone who will be leading the ATF, considering the vital role the ATF plays in stemming the flow of illegal arms, the lifeblood of drug traffickers, and narco-terrorists. If Chipman wants to end the drug war, can he reasonably be expected to prioritize drug-related firearms trafficking? And as mentioned in the accounts of a current agent that came out against him, Chipman has sided with radicals destroying monuments, opposed efforts based on rule of law. Some of the tweets he has here from July 21, which was during the height of the attacks on monuments by leftists. Chipman opposed law enforcement protecting monuments and rather supported leaving them to the vandals. His tweet said, "I was proud as a federal agent to protect black churches and arson from abortion clinics and bombs. Sad seeing agents today directed to shield monuments celebrating treason and hate." So this guy is for the destruction of what is America. Next, he supports the Black Lives Matter movement. His tweets say, "Washington, D.C. paints a giant Black Lives Matter message on the road to the White House. Well played, Mayor Bowser." And then Mayor Bowser just became the nation's mayor. Hashtag Black Lives Matter. The report says that these problematic comments are likely only the tip of the iceberg, but until Chipman makes his tweets public and works with Twitter to recover the tweets he clearly deleted, the Senate and the American people will not have a full understanding of Chipman's perspectives on law enforcement, social policy, and other important public policy issues. Next, it goes on to discuss Orwellian pre-crime arrests during his Reddit AMA, which everybody knows about now. That's where he lied about Waco cult members using 250 cal Barretts to shoot down 2 Texas Air National Guard helicopters, which was proven to never have happened. It also goes into comments he made about gun owners and equating them to Tiger King and making fun of new gun owners. It then goes into his back and forth with Senator Cotton, where Chipman said, quote, "ATF has defined an assault weapon as any semi-automatic rifle capable of accepting a detachable magazine above the caliber of .22, which would include a .223, which is, you know, largely the AR round." It also goes into his back and forth with Senator Kennedy and how he could not give a definition of an assault weapon. It also goes into how he distorted technical information about suppressors to promote activist agendas. Also how he fabricated firearm definitions to stoke fear. And then it goes into his time with ShotSpotter. But this is packed with enough information that would cause legitimate concern. If somebody is in a trial, the government has to prove beyond reasonable doubt that this person has done what is alleged. When it's a nomination, if there's reasonable doubt into how this person would operate, if they're not as squeaky clean as being portrayed, then that should be enough to have them bounced from the process. Now, there's a lot of stuff in this report, and I just skimmed through most of it. I will have this report linked down below in the description. And I also want to remind everybody that the U.S. Senate is in recess until this Monday. They're on their 4th of July break. Now, the earliest that Chipman could get a vote would be Thursday the 15th. But there are a lot of things that need to jump in line. I covered that in that video above. But just know that there are a lot of people watching Chuck Schumer and what he's going to do. Especially once they're back in business on Monday. There are some things he has to do, and once he decides to do those, or once there is movement in that direction, you'll know that here on this channel, so please consider subscribing to Guns and Gadgets. I will keep you in the know as fast as possible, and just want you to know that this guy, David Chipman, is bad news. And even people working in the ATF currently think so. All right, guys, be safe, stay vigilant, carry a weapon. I'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.